It's incredibly gratifying to receive this award from the AIA. We've built our practice around engagement with people and places and trying to be rigorous about how we think about design in terms of strategies for creating relationships between what we make and the world around us.
One of the things that is always been important to us is having projects that engage the public or are in the public realm. We want the buildings to be in spaces to be used. We want them to contribute to their environment and their context. We want them to enable occupants to do great work, live better.
Our public projects in parks like Brooklyn Bridge Park, it's really working closely with the landscape architect Michael Van Valkenburg and with the Brooklyn Bridge Park itself to try to understand how can we make a public building that really betters and engages and furthers the idea of public space in New York City.
So for the Rothko Chapel, we've helped engage their mission, which has an element of both social justice as well as furthering spirituality through engagement with art, in really two components in the project. One has been the restoration of the existing chapel building and the Mark Rothko paintings that are within to restore a sense of awe to the visitor to that space. And the other has been to create new architecture which supports the growth of this institution over time and helps maintain a very delicate relationship between the chapel building and the chapel experience and the surrounding neighborhood.
When we're designing for our schools or universities, it's trying to understand the pedagogy of that specific place. How do they want to teach? How do they need to teach? How do they engage students? How do they engage the outside world? What type of spaces support that? You know, I can think of a project we did for a lower school up in the Bronx, and after the first week of working on a lower school in the Bronx, we talked to one of the teachers and she said, it's like I've been teaching here for years. It just feels like it aligns so much how I teach and how the kids want to learn, you know, and that's what makes us feel really excited.
Hi, my name is Katie Griffin, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Architect Magazine. I'm excited to be joined today by Stephen and Kim and Adam from ARO, the 2020 AIA Firm Award winners. Thank you all for joining us.
No, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Katie.
Of course. Well, congratulations to all of you on winning this prestigious award. I just want to check in. What does this award mean to you? How did you and the others in your firm feel upon receiving it?
I mean, one, there's nothing like getting recognition from your peers. That's especially important. But I think what made it really meaningful is that it was recognition for everyone on the team and really everyone within the office. It's not about us as partners, but it's really about the culture and the group of people that are in the office now and have been in the office over the years and the work that we all collectively have done.
You guys have been known to describe your firm as a design project in and of itself, which I think is such a great description. How did that project start and how has it developed over the past 20 years?
Well, it really comes out of our own curiosity and thinking about architecture in the broadest possible context relative to how people use space, interact with space. So the notion of inquiry into the physical and social context of every project really is what grounds our work. And that's only become more intense through the years as we've tackled more challenging programs and projects and sites. And that's what's been very gratifying is we've continued to learn through the process of this inquiry and engagement over time and inculcated that into kind of the culture of the office as well.
Yeah, I think that culture point is really important because like any design project, you're constantly trying to perfect, refine, evolve your model. And I think that evolution of the model has been a big part of the inquiry that Adam is talking about. And so, you know, some of that for us has to do with diversity of work. We like totally embrace a really diverse range of types of projects. And that's because we like the challenge, we like to learn from those projects, but it's taken real effort to like build that portfolio of that diverse body of work. And so really thinking about how the model evolves and also, Adam referenced culture. It's, you know, it's always about the studio and the team and the people in the office and really bringing all of the ideas that people have to our practice and working together. And so the evolution is also a reflection of the generations of architects who've been in the firm, over the past almost 30 years. And that's really exciting, I think, too. And that actually goes back to the first question and Stephen's response, which is that's part of what makes us really excited, because we realize that where we are today is a reflection of all of that effort and all of those individuals who've contributed to like how we work and what the practice really is.
Right. And the part of the design process, we like being self-reflective about how we're working. And every certain number of years, roughly around in an informal 5-year cycle, we just stop and say, are we working the way we want to do? And the most basic question is, are we proud of the work we're doing? Are we having fun? Are we excited about coming to work every day? And what do we need to do to make sure that continues, or we're doing even better work?
You mentioned wanting to have it be fun when you come to work every day, and I know your firm culture is really important to the entire kind of core of what ARO does. Tell me a little bit about what that firm culture is like day to day working in the office.
Well, we're a very horizontal organization. The three of us sit in the open space studio with the rest of the team members in the office. And so that is kind of important. We share very frequently and regularly, both of course within teams that are working on projects, but also just lots of other things going on, whether it's responsibilities about management and administration to some of the folks in the office, but also just helping, sharing how architecture is made, with, generally speaking, mentoring those who are in the office. And so, I mean, that's a kind of key component of our culture, and you see it right away when you come into the office. But then that embodies sort of the way we approach design, of course, as well.
Yeah, it's very much like not a top-down structure, and so we want everybody to contribute. That could be, to everything from contributing to design on a project, but brainstorming about ways we do things in the office. How do we integrate sustainable practices? What are our tools? Those are conversations. Some of those are staff-led, team-led conversations. Some of those are things that we bring, everyone into the room to talk about. And so it's really a team effort. And I think in terms of the culture, Adam alluded to this, like transparency is really important as part of that mentorship. And so we really believe in preparing, sharing openly about how we run the business, how we approach projects, how all the inner workings of the kind of the office, and doing that in a way where people who are in the office really gain that experience. And so that's part of the mentorship is not just, what we think about as studio in school where you're going through, your design projects, but it's really, all the inner workings of making architecture happen and doing it, in a practice, that is our size. So I think that transparency is really important, because it means people learn and are able to take that knowledge out. Hopefully it evolves in our firm, but many people have gone out and started their own practices, and that's also something we're really proud of.
That genealogy that you mentioned, other alums kind of going out and starting their own firms, that's a sizable number, right?
Yeah, we've had roughly 35 firms. When we were putting together our information for the Firm Award, we were taking inventory of various things in the office, and one of them that we're incredibly proud of, Kim was saying, is the number of people who've gone through the office, many of whom we still mentor and keep in touch with. But yeah, approximately 35 alums have their own firms. Many of them are teaching as well. And about half of those firms are also women-led firms, which is really a cool thing too. It's something that we're especially proud of.
That's fantastic. One other thing I want to touch on about your firm culture is you kind of described yourself before as a group of generalists who all like to do a lot of different things. So it sounds like this horizontal structure also, kind of shows up in terms of different people taking on different aspects of projects. Is that true?
That is very much so. I mean, we've always felt that generalist really goes with the combination of we have such a radical diversity of work that's in the office at any one time, from a LGBTQ synagogue to a football stadium renovation to the Rothko Chapel. And because we really believe that if you bring an intelligent lens and a sort of consistent, thoughtful methodology to the work that will allow us to really think of creating great architecture. And the connects to being a generalist in the office is we don't want to start to have a structure where there's specialists in one type or another. We want to sort of train everyone in the office have that same wide lens. Not to say that some people aren't fantastic at different aspects of it, and we always try to have people mentoring or little work groups who are around different strengths and interests. But we work hard to make sure there's not, someone doesn't get stuck doing one type of project for multiple years. In the same way, we don't want to do that because, again, we think that sometimes closes down your thinking, closes it down because you start to fall into the same design habits or the same set of solutions, as opposed to trying to approach each project a priori of how can you start fresh and really think and see what the opportunities are.
What's also exciting is the way in which people live and work today has really, I think, validated our approach in the sense that our familiarity with everything from residential to academic to cultural to institutional work serves us well because the nature of the problems and the projects that we're seeing have boundaries that blur between programmatic functions, activities, and so it's especially fruitful to design those projects and something that works very well with our methodology.
Right. And obviously you all are not receiving this award in a typical year, as evidenced by the fact that we're having this conversation via GoToMeeting as opposed to in person or on a stage. As a nation, we're facing multiple crises, not least of which is a global pandemic that hit your city of New York particularly cruelly. How is your firm culture weathering COVID-19, and how have you and your staff changed how you practice as a result of the pandemic?
It's, I think like many offices, everybody, just like many people around the country, we all kind of turned on a dime and had to start this whole like work from home thing, which really stretches the boundaries of, life work balance, right? That we always talk about, live work balance. But, I think everyone in the office has been incredibly dedicated and hardworking. We've tried to be really flexible to kind of promote that type of flexibility that's required for everybody in this particular context. And we have also tried to be incredibly, again, transparent and direct and honest and open about what we see happening. And so early on, that had to do with the sort of financial unknowns of this situation. And we tried to communicate really clearly about that to everyone. Now it has to do with like, what are our techniques and modes of working and how long are we going to be working remotely, because we are in New York and not everybody lives within walking or biking distance of our office. We haven't required people to come in because we don't want people to feel unsafe taking mass transit, even though we're huge believers in mass transit, right? So we are staying in this model. And the interesting thing, I think, is that we've really embraced tools we were already using, and we're using them more effectively and in new ways because of this constraint. And so I do think, I don't know what all those answers are, but I do think there will be long-lasting impacts to the ways and modes that we work and the ways we collaborate, which is a really important part of our process.
Yeah, one thing we noticed after the 2008 once-in-a-lifetime financial crisis, as opposed to this one, once-in-a-lifetime financial crisis, is after that process, we feel like we came out of as an office stronger, better designers, clearer sense of mission, clearer ideas of what we wanted to work on. And I think some of that, we've always been a transparent office, but we're really working harder on transparency. We've always cared about diversity, but now we're working much harder about diversity and issues of equity and inclusion and trying to be more formal about it. We've always collaborated, but now we're forcing new tools, as Kim talked about, collaboration. So one hopes, and I guess we'll know in a couple of years when we can be self-reflective about this time, one hopes the same thing is happening, that it's making us a better firm and all of us better people.
Yeah, I mean, the core tenets of our philosophy of collaboration, communication, really listening, sharing information. All those things are serving us well during this time.
Stephen, you mentioned sort of a renewed focus in this time on diversity, equity, inclusion, which perfectly tees up my next question, because one of the other things that has been such a marker of 2020 is the clarion calls to start to dismantle the systemic racial injustice in our society and in the industry following the protests, following the murder of George Floyd by Minneapolis police. How have you and your firm been embracing those renewed efforts? You talked about kind of a more focused approach to it. Tell me a little bit about what that looks like.
I mean, one of the most basic things we're trying to do is make it a team members led, not led by the partners. So there's actually a diversity, equity, and inclusion working group have just done amazing work within the office and really set up such a clear beginning of a clear, because we have years of work to do. It's not a 2-month thing, but really starting to set up a short-term, medium-term, and long-term sets of goals that fall in a lot of different categories. You know, on the one hand, we're a relatively diverse office, 50% multicultural, 50% women, but we can be more diverse, and we need to be more proactive and thoughtful about that. You know, we've had some great not-for-profit clients that we do work for, but how can we make sure communities who don't know about us we start to engage them, because people find out about us through very specific channels, and those channels might be closed off to some communities. So how do we open up the channels that people learn about us? And I mean, those are just a couple of things. I know Adam and Kim could add.
I mean, very fundamentally, the process of engagement that we feel is so crucial to how we work with clients as thought partners is something that, again, we're going to bring to bear and have been bringing to bear the last few months, and will be continuing to do in the future toward improving, social equity and diversity in the office. So.
Also, in addition to what Adam and Stephen just talked about, some of this has played out in improving how we communicate internally in the office and sharing more. So, this group came together and made these suggestions. Everything on the list, we were like, yes, this is great. These are all great ideas, or as Stephen said, short, medium, long term. And some of it was just about being more open to, and reinforcing for everyone, like, yes, if you want to take on a mentorship role and you have to make a time commitment to do that we as a firm are going to back that for you. And we as a firm are going to commit to creating a space and time for people to take on those additional kinds of responsibilities, which helps connect us and helps, sort of allow everyone to contribute, right? So some of it was also just realizing that we took for granted that people might know that we would support that, but we never really talked about it in as overt a way. So it's really opened up some very strong and helpful conversations, I think, in the office.
Yeah, I think also fundamentally. Oh, go ahead, Adam.
No, I was just going to say that's building specifically on the fact that Stephen, Kim, and I have always been involved in organizations and leadership, whether it's Van Allen Institute with Stephen or the AIA with Kim or Places Journal with me. We want to encourage studio members to do the same thing. So it's really an elaboration of that. It's not something distinct from the office.
Yeah. And I think fundamentally, our goal is always to do like excellent architecture that serves communities and organizations and institutions in really deep, meaningful ways. And, if we want to do that, I think, again, like I say, I think it's going to make the office better and the work that we do better. And, we want challenges where we really can make a meaningful impact and difference. And we need to, be able to listen and understand that and approach it with some humbleness, because we don't know a lot of this. So it's a long learning process, which is exciting.
That's great. We're recording this conversation on a day when Tropical Storm Zeta is aiming for the Gulf Coast, because we've had so many storms in 2020 that we've actually run through the alphabet. Other huge swaths of the country are ablaze with wildfires. One of the other crises facing us this year is the accelerating effects of climate change, which are becoming ever more impossible to ignore. I know that sustainability has been a core tenet of your firm since its inception, but how are you kind of refocusing on sustainable, resilient design, or doubling down on that in the wake of all of these unignorable things?
I'll start with one short example, which references what Stephen said earlier about during 2008, how we felt we emerged from that stronger. One of the projects we did at that time was a passive house in Syracuse, New York. We collaborated with a firm called Televolley Bernheimer on that. And right now, we're actually doing a very large passive house project in downtown Brooklyn, 2 new public schools, which will be the first passive house projects, schools in New York City. And so it's building on that. So that's one way in which we're addressing some of the urgent issues facing us, which is by energy efficiency and sort of changing the paradigm of energy efficiency in buildings.
We also have, in that same discussion we were having earlier about how we are reflective about our processes, that includes continuing to push for how we better integrate sustainable practices into our design process, and how and when to do that earlier and earlier. And this is a conversation we've been having for years now in the office, where some of it is about tools, some of it is about collaboration. It's also about awareness and how we can be advocates for this in our projects with our clients, because not all owners and users embrace these kinds of goals and ideals with the same enthusiasm, right? So, or same sense of responsibility. So we've been working on that internally, which is like an ongoing project, and aspects of that or examples of that are we have like a healthy materials working group. And so really trying to figure out ways that we can build our own resources that align with how we work and how we design, to continue to promote not just energy efficient buildings, but buildings and buildings with sort of low footprint, but buildings that create healthy environments for individuals and occupants, and really do that like with a vision for the long term, buildings that will last. And I think one thing we also talk about a lot in this regard is that we love adaptive reuse, or we love renovation projects. We do a significant amount of work in that particular arena, and one of the reasons is that we really value built fabric and the contribution it makes, and how it can also help with some of this challenge. If we actually embrace some of our existing building stock, it can significantly, of course, help the issue a little bit for architects.
Yeah, and then we seek out projects where we can expand our knowledge base in this. So whether it's we have 2 mass timber projects in design right now, which is new for us. So one 55,000 square foot building out in Tacoma, Washington, another in upstate New York. So we sometimes target projects like, okay, we need to go after this because we need to expand that knowledge base. And no matter how much you read about something, you need to push it through construction, design and construction, to really deeply understand and learn it.
You also encourage your staff who are interested in pursuing different certifications or different knowledge to pursue that as well. For Adam, you're talking about staff being interested in pursuing more knowledge of passive house.
That's right. So we supported one of our staff who was interested in becoming trained as a passive house specialist or certified passive house expert, and that's great. And so we have him on staff, and he's actually working on the mass timber project Stephen was describing, and he's also been involved in the schools that we're doing in downtown Brooklyn that are the passive house buildings. We also had the initiative in the office, a zero waste initiative that actually came out of enthusiasm and sort of the energy of studio members as well. So it's one of the examples that related to one of the examples Kim gave earlier.
What is that zero waste initiative?
There was it was part of a campaign that AIA New York, our New York City chapter, launched a few years ago, I guess, and that came out of zero waste guidelines that had been developed in collaboration with the city. And we joined the campaign, which was like a challenge for firms to sign up and then actually assess and track your waste and report in, and then see who had made the biggest improvements, you know, from the beginning to the end of the period. But it was so cool. It was like so interesting, and we went through, and it was really nice is that they supported by giving some education, and then our team, like, we went through a whole waste assessment, which meant we were all crawling around with gloves and like looking at how we had thrown things away and what could be composted and what could be recycled, and where we were making mistakes, just simple mistakes within the kind of recycling world, you know, piece of it. But what that led to was new waste and recycling habits in our office, and we started composting in the office, which is not something that is supported for commercial use through the the city system, you know, so we had to do private composting, but just creating better awareness about our own waste stream and our own footprint, which was educational for us as a firm, but at the end of the day, it's also educational for us as an architect for other clients, right? So learning about that was really like fun and interesting and impactful, I think, for all of us in many different ways. I get excited about the waste conversation.
No, we continue to, I mean, that's become part of the office. So we don't have trash cans in the office. You know, we haven't had them for several years now, a couple of years. So, yeah.
So, you know, 2020, we've talked about a lot of challenges that we faced in 2020, but you also have so many things to celebrate this year. This award, but many others as well. You've seen the opening of landmark projects, such as the renovation of the Rothko Chapel in Houston. You've seen the development of designs, such as the Passive House School in New York. What are some of your proudest moments of this year? What are some of the proudest achievements that you've had?
Wow. You know, it's an interesting lens given the world around us to think about this. You know, obviously, you know, the thing where always just makes us so happy is to really deeply engage the people we're designing for and really understand them. So Rothko Chapel, and really understanding their social justice mission, and also understanding the Rothko paintings themselves, and trying to create architecture that's both rigorous but really furthers they do. And that type of thing just makes us really excited and really happy. So, you know, that project there. But I think, I don't know, I think the thing me personally most proud of is just the internal office community and how we really came together over the last 6 months. And you know, it's 6 months, in the first 3 or 4 months of it was hard. And you know, I'm still at my dining room table sitting here. How we're, you know, really everyone came together as a strong community, and trying to strengthen that in you know, what's a really hard time in the world around us, and stressful times. So to me, that's the thing that I'm most proud of.
No, I echo that. I think it's also been really satisfying to work with many of our clients and a few new clients to help navigate this time, all of us together. And that's been pretty meaningful for all of us. And yeah, I mean, and we're excited. We have this fall, we'll be completing DIA Chelsea, a renovation of several buildings for DIA Art Foundation in Chelsea, which we started doing work for them on multiple sites that they have about 3 years ago. So that's something I'm looking forward to in the next few months. But it's just been really amazing to see the resilience of the people in the office to work together as a team, and also to get projects during this time that we start that are new as well. Like, so it's at times kind of disjunctive in the notion of how things continue on, but you know, it's been the flexibility that Kim mentioned earlier has kind of served us well, and just kind of communication and transparency. So yeah.
Yeah, we're always aligned, like not always, but almost always aligned. And so I was going to say the office too. Like, I think this is a huge challenge for us as individuals, for us as families, for us as practitioners and as businesses, and as environments, like for New York City, you know, which you mentioned earlier, Katie. And so I am so proud of, you know, of the firm and the team. And I think that the fact that everybody has stayed, you know, healthy and, you know, is working hard, and that is going smoothly, and that we have been able to communicate well with our clients and our peers in this period, and to really continue momentum on projects, which is important for owners, right, and for schools and institutions. And so figuring out how to do that, and you know, to do it without losing any time in the schedule, and you know, and everything has been really interesting. And so I just think that's for us a huge accomplishment. And to do that, our team has, you know, stayed the same size. We've been, you know, committed to that, and been able to manage that this year. And that's great. But like Adam said, it's also been super cool to get some new work, and to do that in this context, because it stretches new muscles, trying to, like, again, use these tools in different ways and interview for a project when you're not in the same room and all of that. It's an interesting process. So those are real lessons that we'll take with us for decades, right? We're going to have this with us for a really long time.
Well, has this year, with all of the successes and all of the challenges and all of everything else, I'm curious, has it changed your kind of definition of what success looks like for 2020, or what success looks like in this moment?
It adds perspective, right? I think it adds perspective to what that is. Adam, what were you going to say?
No, it hasn't really changed my perspective. I think it's just reinforced my sense of thinking holistically about what we do in the context of the world around us, and that we're a part of it. We're participants in whatever is happening, and that kind of engagement, which we've always done with clients, we said earlier, has been expanded more, and we feel strongly it's always been a part of our office, but just to strengthen that. So that kind of recommitment to that is something that means a lot to me.
I feel like it's expanding our perspective in a way. You know, we were chatting the other day all about how, you know, ARO, when we started, we were like doing really rigorous, formal, great material based and well-detailed projects, and we expanded out to engaging more deeply clients' missions. And I think then in really engaging climate change and the challenge of that through this resiliency and sustainability work, and now realizing there are even more complicated problems that you're always aware of, but realize that we have to take a greater stand and have to have a larger impact. So I think it's expanding it and expanding our toolkit, while we hope the same quality buildings come out of all of this. It's just really the issues they take on overtly keep expanding, that we're aware of that now. So it's great.
Yeah, like the definition of success is not exactly the same, right? Because I think we've added to our expectation about what our process looks like, how we engage individuals or communities in that process, how we, you know, who is the team that's working on this project, how is the building going to perform, you know, in the ways we were talking about. So there's more of a sense of expanded responsibility for what our buildings and spaces need to achieve and do, and expanded responsibility for what we as architects need to kind of how we need to lead that process or contribute to that process. So it's really it definitely gives some pause, you know, when you think about like what we do every day and how we can continue to make it more meaningful and more impactful.
Yeah, and it makes the community in the office that much more important, the impact, because it's like, I think about it, it's like, wow, there's no way just 3 partners can figure that out. You need really the depth of intelligence and experience and listening from everybody in these different perspectives to really do justice to all the challenges that we have in front of us.
So I have to ask, you mentioned, Stephen, earlier the kind of 5-year check-in, like the kind of rethink every 5 years. Where are you guys in that process, and what are some kind of things you see yourselves continuing to evolve into going forward?
Wow, we were in the middle of it of it when COVID hit, of sort of going through and trying to tighten up how we were working on things. And some of it was just design processes, like, are we doing enough models? Are we too reliant on Rhino and not? We used to be a more dual, digital and physical. Are we, thinking about projects and sort of post-assessment in the right way? Are we? So we were sort of working our way through that. I think personally, the whole world opened up in front of us while that. So a lot of the DEI work that's been going on and a lot of the other work that's going on is really expanding that. And I think what Kim said, the tools that we've been creating to be able to work effectively remotely of actually building on some of that sort of 5-year thing. And it's never a completely rethink the office. It's more like, we're going this way, and should we turn this way or this way just a little bit and make adjustments? Sometimes there's larger adjustments as well.
Sounds like a gut check and refocus.
Yeah.
Right.
And tightening a focus as well, or in this case, expanding.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Adam or Kim, do you have anything to add about sort of directions?
I think what we found, and we were building upon a period of self-reflection when we were thinking about our methodology and our work, was, again, kind of holistic nature of how we think about problems, the integrity with which we try to carry them out in terms of our commitments to people in the office and collaborators and clients. But also there's a fundamental ethical dimension to what we do that, again, I think relates to what Stephen said about how that's now being manifest, that things have come, quote unquote, opened up around us. And it's really exciting to begin to bring that into action in new ways.
Well, is there anything we haven't touched upon today that you all want to talk about, to bring up?
Gosh,
I would just like to say, again, how appreciative we are, even though this has been such a crazy year. We're so excited about having achieved this recognition, in kind of for the firm as a whole, not for the three of us, but really for the whole firm. And even though the year hasn't been exactly what any of us would have anticipated when it started, or when we got this great news, it's really meaningful, and I think it feathers in very well to what we're talking about how we see the direction of the practice, what we think our responsibilities are and our impact is. So those are opportunities that we're excited to continue to explore. So I just want to say thank you again for that. I mean, it's been great, and it's been really amazing to connect a lot of people and peers about this, and about what it means, and to share a little bit about our story in case it's insightful or interesting, for colleagues. So that's been fun.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations to you all. Congratulations to the entire staff. I know it is a huge collective effort. Thank you all for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Yeah.
Good to see you all.